Hey guys, Anthony with Advanced Vector here, and just the other day I made kind of I'm back video, and one of the things I talked about was getting into FDM printing, and specifically a project that I am doing right now where I have a Creality Ender3 here on the bench, and I got it. It was kind of 4 parts, basically untested. You can find these for $60 to $80, which is pretty cheap for a printer, assuming they work. So I got this one. I did set it up. It looks like all the motors and everything work, but it seems to have some kind of a feeding issue, and so that's really what started me down this path of, well, what can I do to fix that? And then that opens up the rabbit hole of what can I do to the Ender. So this is gonna be a video series, probably 2 or 3, 4, I don't know, we'll see how deep I want to go, of just tinkering. Now absolutely you can buy printers off the shelf that are gonna do everything basically better than this. I mean, even this little bamboo A1 mini back here, it just works, right? So, this isn't necessarily a, can I make the best printer ever? But what I found is, number one, the tinkering, the figuring out, and honestly just the learning about how 3D printers work, how they're assembled, all of the different parts, I think is going to be really critical information to know, just to be able to operate and understand how any 3D printer works. So that's kind of my goal with this. Number one, I want to mess around with some neat tech, do some things like that. It's actually surprisingly affordable to upgrade these machines, even if you buy the direct upgrade packs from Creality. So one of the things that I saw that I want to do, and this will be one of the videos, is we have that second Z-axis, right? So that both sides are the same. Right now it just kind of has that one bar that spreads across with some rollers on the other side, and you can kind of kink that one way or another, and that can definitely throw off your bed leveling. Like every time I move this thing, if I bump it too hard, I find that my level gets all out of whack, and I kind of gotta redo all of it again. So that was a little bit of an annoying thing. So I actually haven't gotten really many successful prints off of this thing yet. You probably won't be able to see this, but I was able to get a couple of these little link retention clips for these cable chains. So a couple of those printed. I would try to print like a bed of 8 of them and whatnot, and it would just kind of fail. It's like after I feed the resin, or not the resin, resin printer, feed the filament in through the Bowden tube, try to get it down through there, it's like there's just too much friction or something. I don't think it's a problem with the nozzle or anything like that, because when I, force press and push it down there with myself, like I can sit there and almost push it through indefinitely. I've never had any kind of clogging or anything like that. So, anyway, so that's probably the first thing that we're gonna do, and I actually have all the parts printed. I actually did get it all the way assembled, and it it showed vast improvement. And then I thought, hey, this is gonna make a great video series, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. So basically, what I got is there is a mod out there on Printables, I think it was, or Thingiverse. One of them, but it's the Hydra Extruder mod. So it upgrades your fans, so the air is more directed. You get the dual fans, one on each side. It also has a mounting option for you to do kind of a direct drive extruder, so that the extruder motor just sits directly on top. So there's just a short little Bowden tube, and it just shoves it right down in there. And some other things like that. So we're gonna start with that one, and that's actually what I'm gonna do today. But other than that, here I'll flip the camera over and we will look at this Creality as it sits right now, and I'll kind of talk about what we're gonna do, show some of the parts, and then we'll kind of jump into the assembly. All right, so here we can see I've got this thing on the bench here. And this is the last print. Actually, I got it all reassembled, try to get it all put together. I guess one caveat, this is a normal Ender, and the very first upgrade I did already was this was the original plate, and the adhesion on this was just like atrocious. You know, this probably was run in a print farm or something like that where they had, you know, tens of these, and anyway, it was just beat up. So I got this plate. I think it was I don't know, like 10-15 bucks, and just the textured PEI plates are kind of the way to go these days. But this is the benchy that I tried to print last night, and I'll actually roll to some film that I had while it was printing. But we can see here, if we bring it in, into focus here, that it's just got all kinds of, you know, stringing. It's like it stops feeding after a certain amount of material goes through. So that's kind of what we're trying to solve today. We're going to do that by basically redoing our whole head assembly here. So this shroud is going to come off, this fan is going to come off, the heat block is going to come off at first, and then we're going to put together, I got all the parts printed, I got all the hardware, but we're going to put together that Hydra Mod, and that's going to be our first big thing. That's going to take our extruder and our extruder motor, and again, set it right up on top here. So we're just going to have a short little jumper of this Bowden tube. The extruder is going to be like right here, and it's just going to shove the filament right down in there. So it should keep us from having any problems with, you know, I don't know if there's just too much friction with this Bowden tube or what the deal is there, but that's going to help us solve that. First thing we're going to do actually is we will take this Bowden tube out, and I've actually seen a lot on the forums and stuff. Some people just don't get this, but this has a pressure clip in there, and this little nub jewel right here, if you just push that down, and it does take a little bit of force, and pull straight up, this tube does come out. Now, we can see that there's still some filament in there, and again, I'm kind of a little bit of a noob, so before we pull anything apart, we're going to turn the Ender on, and we're going to heat up that nozzle, and we're just going to go ahead and pull the filament out too, so we're not having to fight with that the whole time that we're doing this. Alright, so that's almost hit 150. I don't know if you guys can even read the LCD thing on the screen, but, you know, now that that is softened up a bit, we can see that we're able to pull that out, and we can go ahead, go to temperature, and we'll just start cooling that down, and we'll let it do its thing there for just a second. I could just turn the machine off, but I'm going to let the blower cool it off a little bit, because we are going to be working in here, and if you guys are doing this at home, this is, you know, it gets very hot. So if you've been messing with it at all, give it a few minutes to cool down. You know, make sure that it gets to a safe temperature, you know, probably below 50 degrees Celsius or something like that, is gonna be optimal, just to make sure that you don't hurt yourself when you're getting into this thing. Alright, so it's about 100 degrees now. That's pretty good. We're not going to be getting in there for a few minutes, so we will go ahead and shut the power off. And, you know, it's probably not necessary because of that physical switch, but whenever I'm working on a machine, I always like to unplug it as well. So we'll go ahead and make sure that there's absolutely no power going to this machine. I highly recommend that you do that yourself if you're going to work on these too. So I'm going to bring us in just a little bit closer, so you guys can hopefully see a little bit of what I'm doing. And the first thing that we need to do is get our M2. You can either use an Allen wrench, or I have an iFixit kit. iFixit, if anyone from iFixit's watching this, I have one of your old doggies, and it's working really good still, but it would not be a bad deal to get an upgrade, and I'll do a review video on it. So, anyway, so there's not really a particular order to a lot of these things, but I'm going to go ahead and just start with taking the heat shroud off. So now we can see that the shroud is off. these cords are kind of like hard lined into our fans here, so we're going to let those sit for just a minute, and we're going to let that continue to cool off for just a minute as well. So we'll come around in here behind, and we will pull this fan out. So now that one's out. Now on the side here, for whatever reason, they made these ones significantly smaller, so we will need M.1.5. I don't know. On my iFixit toolkit, if you can see that, it's the H1.5. I don't know if H and M are exactly the same, but it seems to work. Really quick, this little shroud, so we can see kind of the air blows in from the top, and then it just has this little lip that kind of redirects it. So on the Hydra, let me see if I can get one. What we have is that fan sits into this slot, blows air down through there, and then we can see it comes out. I don't know if that's quite focused, but it comes out a much smaller nozzle, and that really helps direct that air right on the nozzle. Plus you get it from both sides. Should help a lot with bridging and some of the other printing activities that we need to do. So I'm just going to give this a quick... Okay, so that's cooled off enough by now. We can get in there and start dinking around. We will switch back to our 2. So now we got this piece off. This here's your nozzle. This is actually the heater block. This is like a... man, I forget exactly what it's called. But basically it keeps the filament from heating up too much. Obviously it's a heat sink, but it keeps the filament from heating up too much before it gets to the nozzle so that it doesn't expand in there and get stuck. Anyway, we can actually just set all of this stuff aside for now. And because it's bugging me, I'm gonna grab some nippers, and we're gonna pinch that off so that it is nice and square. Okay, so the last thing that you'll need to do here, well, I shouldn't say the last thing. The last part that we need to do for disassembly of this head is we actually do need to pull this part off. Okay, so now we've got kind of our extruder head, or not our extruder head, we've got our print head completely disassembled, as much as it needs to go, and now we can actually start putting on the other pieces. So we've got a couple of things that we need to do here. I'm not going to go into go into depth on it. The creator of this mod on Thingiverse or whatever it is, and I'll put the link down in the description, has very detailed instructions on exactly what hardware you need, how to print it, so on and so forth. He does recommend PETG. I tried PLA. Some people said PLA is fine. We'll see if I have heating problems. I pretty much will probably only ever print PLA on this printer, so I don't know. We'll see how it holds up. I know that PLA isn't the best for the heat, and if I do have problems, worst case, I just reprint it. now that is all in place. That looks and feels pretty solid. Actually, this is canted at a little bit of a weird angle, so let's fix that right now. Alright, so now we can start putting the interesting things back on. But the first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to cut this. We're going to splice in a Y so that we can power our other fan. So we will have a fan on both sides here, just to give us a little bit extra. So I'm going to get set up for that, and I'll come back when I'm done. Alright, so I haven't gotten to the fan yet because I realized I kind of got to assemble this thing before I can figure out exactly like the lengths and different things like that I want to do with these fans. So I don't know. I'm not going to undo all of it, but I'll just, you know, kind of point out the main things. So obviously we put this fan on the front. I mounted this fan with just 2 of the screws that we used to unmount it, basically. We'll get the new fan in on this side here in just a second, but I wanted to call out, and I made this mistake last time. I don't want you to make the same mistake, but you got to run your cabling before you put this top bracket on, because the best way for it to come out is through a little hole right here, so it just kind of feeds through around the back of where our short little Bowden tube will go, and then it flows out here nice and smoothly. So anyway, yeah, I got to take this off, run my wire, and then I can talk about, or then I can see where I'm going to solder. Probably won't do any of the soldering online or on video. It's just like really hard to do that kind of delicate work in front of a camera. Also, there's people out there that are better equipped to not only show you but teach you about soldering. But the idea is we cut the line, we splice in jumpers from this one over to the new fan. I got some heat shrink tube that I'll put on there just to make sure that it's nice and isolated, and then we're well on our way. You don't have to do anything special. You know, you don't have to like run a whole nother line back to the power supply or the motherboard or anything like that. You can just jumper off of that same one. So we will show that here in 3, 2, 1. Alright, and just like magic, we got it done. So what I did is I put both fans on both sides, and then if you guys can see here, bring that over. Maybe it'll focus, but there we go. I got these 2 soldered up. We can see, and you just do black to black, red to red, and now this fan has power too. So pretty simple. You can use electrical tape or something else like that if you like, but I really like these shrink tubes. They just look a lot nicer, and you don't have to worry about the glue or anything on the tape sliding off. So that's pretty much it for this part of it. We can see I inserted a little tube in here. We'll get that back in frame. So that's our short piece of Bowden tube that is going to go up to the outlet for our extruder, and so that's going to be the next thing that we do. So I'll pull that off real quick, slam it down into here, and then we'll go from that point. Alright, and just like that, our new print head assembly is done. We've got everything in place here. We've got our extruder, we got our dual fans that are spliced in, we've got our little Bowden tube, tensioner, cooling fan. So at this point, this is actually ready to print now. So as a final step, I have a links that I'm going to add here just to help guide this this line coming out. I did design this little box myself, which is an end cap that has a adapter for these links that you can find everywhere on Thingiverse. And so I'm going to put that in here on the end of the x-axis, replace that box that's in there, and we'll be good to go. And we can get something on the printer and see if this thing will finally print a benchy for me. Okay, so after a little bit of trial and tribulation, we do finally indeed have everything up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and just run through a few quick leveling exercises to get the bed all leveled up, make sure we're true there, and then we will throw a benchy print on this and see what it comes up with. Alright, so I just did the leveling, and you guys saw a little test on there with some squares and went all the way in and out. The adhesion on this thing looked pretty dang good. So we're going to go ahead and do our next test, and we're going to get a benchy out of this thing. Hey, and we're back. So, unfortunately, I didn't check the available memory on my SD card, and it actually got full about 3/4 of the way through the print. So, you guys saw most of it come through. Didn't have any hiccups, problems. In fact, this benchy here is a beautiful, beautiful benchy. Definitely not perfect. I mean, you can see there's a few little lines and different things like that, but honestly, for basically no calibration first run test, I was using Orca Slicer and basically the default settings in Orca that they had for the Ender3, and it is just pretty dang good. So yeah, that is awesome. Alright guys, well, I am definitely super excited about this benchy coming out, having it look so good. This was like kind of a good afternoon project. You know, thankfully I had already kind of ordered in all the different parts and stuff that I need. I'll put links down in the description for everything, the plate, some of the stuff that I bought. It will be an affiliate link, so it doesn't cost you anything extra, but using that link does help throw a little bit of cash my way so I can keep doing upgrades and keep making great videos like this. But anyways, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this one. If you haven't already, please smash that thumbs up button for me like I know you can. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when my next great video comes out. In the meantime, keep building and stay happy.